So again, welcome. My name is David Derdiger. I am the lead acupuncturist at the Deerfield location for Align Modern Health. And today we're going to be going through a webinar on breathing exercises and some guided self-massage for stress relief. So let's get started. For those of you who are not current patients at Align Modern Health, or you're not familiar with Align Modern Health is an integrative medicine setting where we combine multiple medical modalities to look at a whole patient instead of just focusing on a single symptom or condition. And we do that through the modalities that you see here. Our chiropractic and physical medicine team works very closely with our clinical massage therapy team. Our functional medicine and clinical nutrition team deals a lot with issues of internal medicine. And then acupuncture plays quite nicely with all of the other modalities because it is a full set of medicine in its own right, and it can treat everything from physical issues to internal medicine issues to psycho-emotional issues. So let's move on. A little bit more about myself. Like I said, I'm a licensed acupuncturist and licensed in the state of Illinois. Been practicing for 7 years. I have a national certification with the NCC AOM. That's our national certification board. I obtained my degree in Seattle at the Seattle Institute of East Asian Medicine. And then in a previous life, I was studying biomaterial engineering at the University of Illinois. And that is an interesting story, but not one that we have time for today. So let's reflect a little bit here on the last year and a half. It's been kind of rough, I think, for most people. There's been a lot of complexity, a lot of uncertainty, and with that, it can quite easily lead to heightened feelings of and physical manifestations of stress and anxiety. So I want to actually read these line by line so that we can really just look very clearly at what's been happening, right? There's been a global pandemic, civil injustices and unrest, a violent political divide. A lot of people are working from home or remote learning, or you're having to work in public, you're exposed to the virus. More people are spending more time sitting than ever before. We are having to rely on an internet and technology system that was not designed for the capacity that we're using it in order to connect with others and do our jobs. And we've had to adapt to wearing face coverings in social settings. So all of this is not in the past. This is actually still happening. And it's in the background. And if this feels like a lot, that's because it is. What's really important to do when there's a lot happening is to find balance. So in particular, what I'm talking about is finding balance in one's activities. So we can look through the lens of Yin and Yang, which is a concept from classical Chinese philosophy. It is prevalent in Chinese medicine. For those not familiar, Yin is associated with darkness, night, cool, cold, quietude, tranquility. Yang is then the counterbalance to that. So Yang is thing associated with brightness, the daytime, warmth, heat, excitement, activity. Because we're human beings, we are by nature more yang than yin. And so we tend to want to do more yang things. So some basic examples of yang activities would include multitasking, working, intense studying, doing chores, sanitizing, taking care of family and friends. The thing that's important to note about all this is the direction of your own personal energetic resources. They're coming from within and they're going out. So the flip side of that in the yin activities, right, is that energy is coming in. We're focusing inward upon ourselves. So some examples that we have here are relaxing. And I mean, just relaxing, not doing something to relax, but just relaxing. Taking deep breaths. Sleep is the most yin activity that you can do. And it is the foundation for all of the other yang activities that you could want to accomplish. any sort of contemplative activity. This includes various forms of traditional meditation, but also includes mind-body activities like yoga, tai chi, qigong, turning everything off, literally turning off all your devices, computers, phones, smartwatches, lights, and just being in a space where you don't have electrical stimulation. And then the very act of seeking balance in your life, right? So in this yin yang paradigm, yang, or I should say chaos, belongs to yang, whereas order belongs to yin. And so when you have a lot of things happening and there's no structure to it, seeking that balance itself is an yin activity. So what does this mean for us physiologically? Probably the best place to go for that is to talk a bit about the nervous system. There are a few different ways of breaking down the nervous system intellectually. Here we're going to look at the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. The sympathetic nervous system is something that perhaps a lot of people are familiar with as the fight or flight response. And it's our survival mechanism for reacting to life-threatening situations, whether they are real, imminent, and in front of us, or perceived. When that engages, there is a physiological reaction. The heart starts to beat harder and faster, muscles start to tense up, you'll start to sweat, pupils will constrict, you'll become more sensitive to light and sound, and that all serves the purpose of subduing or neutralizing that threat, or running from it and getting enough distance between you and that threat that it no longer exists. So evolutionarily, what should happen is once that threat is neutralized or no longer within your vicinity, is the parasympathetic nervous system automatically kicks in. So this is your rest and digest, or calm and connect part of your nervous system. So it reverses all of those changes from the sympathetic, right? It allows our heartbeat to slow down, allows our respiration rate to slow down, allows our muscles to relax, allows our body to cool down a little bit. Pupils will dilate so that we're not so laser focused. In a modern life, it is really quite common for people to end up in a chronic state of sympathetic nervous system engagement. Because we have this system that's left over, or not left over, but developed through evolution, we're not spending our time, most of us, running from tyrannosaurs or mastodons or anything else like that. But at work, there are emails that come in that need to be responded to. There are tasks that need to be completed. And you need to get somewhere, be somewhere on time, make it through traffic. All of these things can become perceived as threats by the sympathetic nervous system. And so that stays engaged all the time. And then oftentimes people will go home and then watch TV, which is not actually relaxing. It's actually quite stimulating. Or surf the internet, get on Facebook. All of these things are stimulating and continue to activate the sympathetic nervous system. So over time, if that stays engaged, it can lead to chronic health problems like high blood pressure, arterial sclerosis, anxiety and depression, addiction, insomnia. So in a modern life, it is particularly important that we take steps to choose to activate our parasympathetic nervous system. Good news is there are a lot of ways to do that. And quite a few of them are selecting those inactivities that we were looking at on the last slide. Something that can be done, maybe not necessarily easily, but it is a simple solution, is to limit or eliminate alcohol and caffeine. So alcohol, while in the moment makes you feel really good because it disengages that sympathetic nervous system, it disrupts the hormonal interaction between the sympathetic nervous system and the rest of your body. And that causes other problems. Caffeine, right? Anybody here who's had caffeine in their system knows that it's basically a sympathetic nervous system response. Gets you keyed up, tightens your focus, makes you talk a little faster, work a little faster, do things more quickly. So limiting those can help to have your sympathetic nervous system not engaged all the time. Sleep, like we mentioned in the last slide, getting good quality sleep and getting enough of it, ideally at least 7 hours per night. Appropriate exercise really helps. And what I mean by appropriate exercise is exercise for your body type and your level of fitness, and making sure that you're getting a good warm up and a good cool down. So you're controlling your heart rate as it goes up and as high as you want to or need to, depending on the level of intensity that you're training, and then making sure that it cools back down. So that control of the heartbeat is in and of itself an act of engaging the parasympathetic nervous system. Keeping a journal, right? This is an Yin activity, reflecting inward, drawing our energy inward. And then, like I had said, the various forms of contemplative activities, particularly restorative forms of yoga. So like an Yin yoga, sometimes hatha yoga, maybe not like a core power yoga or really intense hot yoga. And then restorative forms of Qigong, as opposed to there are some harder, more martial forms of Qigong that might not be appropriate. So aside from all that, there are services and products through Align Modern Health that also help with engaging the parasympathetic nervous system. Acupuncture at this point is very well documented in having the ability to decrease sympathetic nervous system activity and increase parasympathetic nervous system activity. This is often experienced on the table. Once the needles are in, there are a few minutes of just sort of adjusting, feeling the sensations of what it's like to have the needles in. And then usually after about 5 to 10 minutes, there's a deeper sense of relaxation that will start to kick in. This is also often experienced as a really good night of sleep after a treatment, perhaps for several days afterwards. If you're coming in for insomnia specifically, then the goal is to have that be all the time. Also, there are adaptogenic substances that can be recommended by providers here, typically by a functional medicine provider. There are also some classical Chinese medicine substances that are classified as adaptogens and are usually included in a larger traditional Chinese medicine herbal formula. So today, we're going to do something interactive. So we're going to go through some breathing exercises, and then we're going to go through some guided self-massage. So to do breathing exercises, we have to talk a little bit about breathing technique first. So the proper technique for doing breathing exercises is diaphragmatic breathing. So there are probably people out here who are familiar with this. It's also known as belly breathing. If you've ever done any kind of singing or martial arts or theatrical work, you're familiar with diaphragmatic breathing. So you can do this laying on a flat surface. You can do this sitting in a chair. If you're laying down, have your knees bent with your feet planted on either the ground or the bed, wherever you are. I'm going to be seated. How I like to do this is I like to be able to scoot forward towards the edge of my chair so that my sit bones are making very clear contact with the edge of the chair. Don't do this if you're sitting in a swivel chair. Unless you know your swivel chair really, really well. We don't need anyone falling out of a swivel chair. What you want is like a nice 90-degree angle with the hips. Sometimes the hips can be down a little bit, and that's actually good. It says here to have a 90-degree angle with the knees bent. The most important thing is that your ankles are directly below your knees. So whichever feels more natural, take one hand, place it on your upper chest. Then you're going to take your other hand and you're going to place it on your belly, somewhere below your ribs. And I'm going to walk you through this. Everybody's breath is different. Everybody's body is different. So I'm going to give some instructions, but the important thing is that you do this in terms of just getting used to the technique at your own pace, so that it feels comfortable in your body. And then when we go forward into some of the exercises, we're going to be doing some specific counts. But for now, we're just going to work on the technique. So with the hands in place, go ahead and close your eyes. And when you're ready, breathe in slowly through the nose. Allow the belly to expand outwards like it's being filled up like a balloon. And when you reach a natural fullness, just allow the breath to fall out of the mouth, the belly returning to its normal resting position. I'm going to have you just do that a few more times on your own, just so that you can get used to the feeling of diaphragmatic breathing. Remember, when you're going in, it's slowly in through the nose, comfortably allowing that belly to expand. And when you're exhaling, just allowing the breath to fall out of the mouth, belly coming back to its normal resting position. I'll give you a couple moments, practice a couple more breaths. Okay, good. So when you're practicing this on your own, just remember that the hand on the chest should remain relatively still. And as it's primarily the belly that should be moving in and out. It is okay for the chest to move a little bit. You don't want to force the chest to stay in place. So as the belly moves in and out, it's okay if the chest is moving in well. You just want the belly to be doing most of the moving. So before we go into the breathing exercises, I would just invite everyone to check in with your body, take stock of any tension that you're holding. Some common places are underneath the skull, in the neck, shoulders, lower back, hips. These are sort of the big hitters. You might have tension elsewhere, but just be aware of that. Don't try to do anything with it. Just take note of it. If you also have any sort of thoughts or emotions, things that you have been holding on to for the last day, the last several days, weeks, months, just notice if they're there and if they're present, and then let go of them. And we'll check in with that again after we do a couple of these exercises. So like I said, the next couple of exercises, I'm going to be counting the breaths and you're going to be following, but doing the same diaphragmatic breathing that we just practiced. So in this first one, we're just going to do 3 deep breaths. It's going to be inhaling through the nose for a count of 3, exhaling evenly through the mouth through a count of 3, and then we're going to repeat that 3 times, right? So this is 3 intentional breaths. So go ahead and close your eyes. If you want, you can have that hand on the chest, one hand on the belly, just to help remind you to do diaphragmatic breathing. And we're going to go ahead and take 3 deep breaths. Inhale, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3. Inhale, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3. Inhale, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3. And just allow your breath to be natural now. Slowly open your eyes. Check in with yourself. Take note of any of those areas of tension. See if any of that has relaxed or changed in any way. If any of those thoughts or emotions have changed in any way, your awareness of them has changed in any way. So this is just taking 3 deep breaths, and that practice is pretty powerful on its own. If you want to go deeper with this, there is this thing that comes out of a book called Finding Power and Purpose in a Stressed Out World by Thomas Crumb. Everyone is going to get a copy of this presentation, so you will be able to come back and read a little bit more about centering breath, possibility breath, and discovery breath. But from now, we're going to advance on to the next breathing exercise, which is a little more complex. It's still going to be 3 breathing cycles, but this is going to involve holding the breath, and the counts are different for the inhale, the hold, and the exhale. Still going to be breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. But this time when you exhale through the mouth, there's going to be, it should be a little audible, right? So it should be inhale like this. And then after you hold, the exhale will sound like, but not forceful, just a little bit of sound. So it should be audible. Something to note with this, since we are going to be doing some breath holding, lightheadedness is normal if you've not practiced this kind of breathing before. Remain calm and continue to focus on the breath. If it feels too challenging, then there are ways to step this down, as long as you maintain that same ratio between the numbers, right? So instead of doing 4, 7, 8, you can do 3, 6, 7 or 2, 5, 6. But for right now, I'm going to lead us through 4, 7, and 8. So go ahead and get your hands in position. Remember, we're going to continue with doing diaphragmatic breathing, and I'm going to bring us through 3 full cycles of this. So when you're ready, go ahead and inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and inhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and allow your breath to be normal. And just take stock of your body. Notice those areas of tension, thoughts, emotions. Notice if anything has changed or if it hasn't. So this can be a standalone practice. And when you're doing it in the beginning, you really only want to do 3 cycles in total. After a month of practicing this, then you can start to add cycles, right? Try adding 4 for a few days, then do 1 more for a total of 5. Do that for a few days. And until ultimately you really don't want to do more than 8 full cycles of this at once, but that will maximize the effectiveness, overall sense of relaxation. So those are the breathing exercises we're going to go through. And what I want to say about those is that they're really great tools for being in the moment, right? If there's something that is particularly stressful. But what I would encourage you to do is to practice these outside of those stressful moments, so that when you get into a stressful situation, say at work or in a car or wherever, you then have that foundation. You have that experience of how this can help you relax before you get into the place where you actually need it. So with that, we're now going to move on to doing some of the guided self-massage. So what I'm going to be teaching you here is called Daoyin. Daoyin, it just means guiding, and it was practiced, in particular, the form that I'm going to be teaching is practiced by Taoist monks after long periods of seated massage. This was something that I learned at the Taoist Studies Institute in Seattle, and it makes a lot of use of rubbing or chafing is the primary technique. There is some grasping and pulling, but it's a lot of just warming up the tissue to make space to encourage proper circulation. So I'm going to stand while I do this, and I would actually encourage you to do the same. If you aren't comfortable standing or you don't want to stand, that's okay. You can also do this seated. So I'm just going to adjust my screen a little bit just to make sure that you can see me. If you have a watch on, I would highly recommend taking that off. We're going to be doing some things where we're sliding up and down the arms and the watch just kind of gets in the way. So start by taking your hands and rubbing them together. Should be soft, right? Hands are soft, elbows are soft, shoulders soft and relaxed, but generating some gentle warmth between the hands, rubbing the back sides of both hands. And then the other. This is really good to do if you've been typing a lot or using the mouse a lot. And then this part is really great if you spend a lot of time looking at a screen, because now you're going to take these really warm hands and you're going to place them over your eyes. Don't let any light in. Your eyes can be open or closed, but you just want to let the presence and warmth of your hands bathe the eyes. Let all the staleness come out of the eyes and into the hands. And before we remove the hands, close the eyes. Bring the hands down. We're going to do that 2 more times. Just warming the palms of the hands a little bit here. And then bring them back up. Palms over the eyes. Shoulders soft, elbows soft. Knees slightly bent, low back, abdomen both soft. Close the eyes, warm the hands 1 more time. And hands bathing the eyes. Good. Now, we're going to wash the face. And then next one is combing the scalp. If you have a hairdo that you don't want to mess up, you can also tap from front to back. But if you don't care like I do, then I would strongly encourage you to comb the scalp because it feels really good. Then with the sort of knife edge of the hand, we're going to go underneath the base of the skull. Right where the muscles meet the bone. Really try to warm up that tissue so that it softens. Then with the right hand, you're going to go down the left side of the neck, all the way to the base of the neck. Then with the left hand, go down the right side of the neck, all the way to the base. And we're going to get around the ears and the jaw. So the palm is going to go right on the jaw here. And then between your index and middle finger is going to go around the ear. So this is warming up the tissue around the ears and the jaw. And we're going to massage the ears. So you're going to grab with your fingers. And we're going to make little loops. So pulling the ear gently out and away in little circles. And you're going to place your hands over your ears and you're going to drum underneath the occiput, underneath this piece of bone where there's all of this soft tissue. Then remove your hands from your ears. And if you remove them and you felt that little, we're going to do that intentionally, repeatedly, but it should be gentle. If it hurts, you're doing it too strong. But the point of this is to massage the inner ear. Okay, this one's a little complicated, so stay with me. You're going to take one thumb. It's going to go in the temple. You take the other thumb, it's going to go into the jaw. This top hand is going to go across the brow, and then the bottom hand is going to split above and below your lips. So keep the jaw loose so that it can move around a little bit, and it looks like this. then switch, right? So now this one's in this temple, this one's in this part of the jaw. Again, this one's going to go across the brow. This is going to go above and below the lips. Then with the knife edge of the hand, just coming down the sides of the neck. Emphasis is on down. Pressing in a little bit. Coming more towards the front. And then sweeping down the midline. Then so this is channel guiding, right? Acupuncture channel guiding. So start with your hand up in the shoulder here. I have my arm outstretched like this so that you can see what I'm doing, but really it's ideal if you let the arm just kind of hang naturally at your side. So you're going to go down the inside or the inside, and then you're going to come up outside or the yang side. And make sure you get all the way up to the base of the neck here. You go down this way. Make sure you get all the way to the fingertips. Turn over, come up the back. So the pace is something like this. Just so that the arm feels nice and loose and open. And then switch, do the other side. Remember, you're going down that inside to the fingertips and then back up. Outside. Then you're going to take your fingertips, find where your shoulder meets your collarbone, and then go down about an inch. Should be a little hollow there, and it might be really tender and sore. If it is, that means you need to be doing this. If you spend a lot of time at a computer in a car, probably have some soreness here. Do the other side, shoulder meets the collarbone and down. This is the accumulating point for the lung. Then with the sort of meat of the hand, we're going to take both hands and we're going to rub the sternum. Emphasis is on down. Warming up the chest. Might feel this going all the way to the back. Then down, just below the heart, below the sternum, and underneath the rib cage. Release the diaphragm. Open up that diaphragm. And then with the tips of the fingers, making bird's beaks, you're going to go into just below and in front of that floating rib. This might be really sore. That's okay. Just work on it a little bit and it'll get easier. And you're going to take your fingers, you're going to make some claws. You're going to go between the ribs. So don't come straight across because then you're actually kind of cutting across the ribs. Your ribs are on an angle. So you want to go follow that angle from outside to inside, moving slightly down. We're going to do the other side. This is releasing those intercostal muscles that we use, accessory breathing muscles. Then making some circles below the rib cage, but above the navel. And go the opposite directions, harmonizing the stomach. And warming up the lower abdomen. So this is the small intestine, uterus, bladder, and then the inguinal crease. And then follow that up over the top of the hips on both sides. Coming around to the back. Warming up the low back. Up into the kidneys. And then down. Warming up the sacrum. Sometimes you can feel this moving down into the legs. Emphasis is on down. And then grasping. I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to just give you a little bit different view. So you're going to grasp down the thighs, down the front, come around and sweep up the insides of the legs. So grasping down the back and sides of the legs, sweeping up the inside, grasping down, sweeping up, and we're just going to sweep 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And we're just going to finish up by doing a little bit of shaking. So shake by lifting the heels up and off the ground, back and forth, should be gentle. Shake the knees, shake from the hips, waist, ribs, shoulders, and then just do some light bouncing. Come up onto the balls of your feet and then gently thud down onto the heels 2 more times. And that concludes our Yin session. All right. Thank you everyone for coming. That concludes the webinar for today. Thank you for coming. I know this for a lot of you was on your lunch, but we're going to have a little bit of time here for Q&A. Hopefully I'm able to get to everybody's questions if you have them. If you don't, I would encourage you to schedule a 15-minute consult by calling this number here, or you can also visit us online at alignmodernhealth.com. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yes, there was a question about whether or not you can do the self-massage sitting down, and yeah, you can absolutely do that sitting down. In fact, there is a longer version of it when you're sitting that I will do after meditation, but didn't have time to get through all of that today. But what we did today, you can do that sitting down just when you get to the legs. Just do the same grasping, just do it while you're sitting, and then the sweeping, you can also do that seated as well. Yeah, so everyone will get a copy of this presentation. If you registered for the webinar, you would be getting this. And then we had a question about whether or not the exercises should be done together or as a sequence. So it is meant to be like a full body sequence, but you can totally break this up and do individual portions of it. And I will, in fact, do that when I'm talking to patients, right? If I have someone who I know uses a computer a lot, I will just start by recommending this, right? Okay, you're gonna warm up your hands because they're cold from being at the computer and using a mouse, and then you're gonna hold them over your eyes for however many seconds, just to give your eyes a break before getting up and taking a break. But a lot of these other things can be broken up. Right, like this is really great for TMJ or teeth grinding, like if you have a tight jaw. I mean, who doesn't have tension here? So, right, getting in there and just digging that out. But yeah, they can be done individually. So there was a question for the 4-7-8 breathing and why there aren't more than 8 cycles. So I will be totally frank and say that I don't know. It is not something that I am particularly well practiced in. It was popularized by somebody named Dr. Andrew Weil. If you want to get into more detail about that practice, I would recommend looking up. He has articles about it. There are some really good YouTube videos of Dr. Andrew Weil performing 4-7-8 breathing, talking to people about where it comes from. And my guess is it kind of getting into why you don't do more than that. Yeah, good question, really good question. Okay, there's a question about whether or not, like, if you can't do self-massage on yourself, could you use a tool and get the same benefit? Yeah, I don't see why not. I would just be gentle with it, right? Like the reference is specifically to a scraper tool, and I'm not sure specifically what the person's referring to, but as long as you're doing it gently, then yeah, if for some reason you can't do that, with your hands, then you could use a tool, but maybe just be really, really gentle and conscious about stuff on the face. I mean, there are techniques in Chinese medicine where you are trying to cause something that looks like bruising but isn't bruising on certain parts of the body. It's called gua sha. I would not recommend doing that. You don't want it to be like red or splotchy or anything like that. It should be gentle. There's a question about sessions being done within 15 minutes or less. I'm not sure if that is in reference to the self-massage that we just did, or if it's the free consult. So whoever asked that question, if you wouldn't mind clarifying, then I can give you a better answer. The self-massage. I think so. It went a little bit longer today just because I was talking a lot and guiding through it. Usually that self-massage routine I can get done in about 5 minutes, 7 if I'm really taking my time. But yeah, good question. I'll hang out just a little bit longer and see if we have any more questions. I know sometimes it takes a minute for them to arrive. You're welcome. Someone thanking. You're welcome. You're very welcome. Okay, looks like that's the end of the Q&A. Thank you again, everybody, for coming, especially if this was your lunch break. I really appreciate that. If you are interested in learning more about acupuncture or anything else related to this, you can always schedule a free 15-minute consult by calling the number here or by visiting us at alliedmodernhealth.com. Thank you.